Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Metal Magdalene with Jet right here on Metal Messiah Radio. Tonight we have a special guest with us on the show. We have John Longstreth with us. He's the drummer for the metal band Origin. Welcome to the show, John.
Hey, thank you. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. So, John, Origin started back in 1998, but you came in shortly after that, right?
Yeah, I'd say the band actually, interesting is we're looking at a 20-year anniversary because originally, if you go way back, it started in 97. Mm-hmm. That's when the name was attached to Five Dudes. And, there was kind of a revolving door for a bit. Members, I think I got in there in late 98, mm-hmm. I think it was. Mm-hmm. And, I think the album must have come out in 99, started touring in 2000. And, the rest has been history. So we don't know what we're going to do, but I think it's going to be some kind of 20-year anniversary pretty soon. So
yeah, you've been around for quite some time. But John, tell us what were the early days with Origin like for you?
It was like going to the gym. Yeah. It's funny, I came out of one band because, I had something that I could do behind the drum kit, but it wasn't quite enough. And so I ended up meeting Paul and Jeremy, who were the two guitar players. And Jeremy was in the band at the time. And they're like, well, you're good at doing a lot of this stuff, but we'll just sit down and slow things down and repeat and, do drills and all that. So for a long time in that band, we would just sit for an hour and just play patterns. We'd play fives and threes and just try and develop ourselves, physically in order to play this kind of stuff. So a lot of the stuff we were playing wasn't even really music as much as it was just, just sit around and do exercises all day. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of what that was about. And then of course, there's a lot of, all that fun stuff that any new band goes through, jockeying to get on shows, So yeah, then lots of road trips, renting vans, being smashed into vans and not getting paid and all that stuff. And it was a lot of fun. We played at Milwaukee Metal Fest in 2000. Mm-hmm. The first one, I think it was the first one that was outside the Eagles Ballroom, so that was a lot of fun. So yeah.
And what was it like for you now when you recorded your first album with them? Like you said, you did all these exercises and all that kind of stuff, and now it comes down to getting this first album done. So what was that whole process like for all of you trying to get this full length done, the very first one?
Well, get your first album in the studio is a lot like the first tour you're going to run into. Is these guys, right? Mm-hmm. And then you get into a recording studio or you get on the road for the first time, and then you really start to know these guys. You start to witness these guys under stress. You witness these guys, because if you've never been in a recording studio, if you've never recorded music in a recording studio, it doesn't matter how much you practice. You practice and practice and practice, but as soon as you get in the recording studio and they put that magnifying glass on, you start seeing all kinds of things that are wrong with what you were doing. And all of a sudden your songs don't feel like your songs as much as you thought they did. And here you are, you got this new guy, this engineer or producer, whatever he wants to be, who knows a ton more about music than you do, but you don't want to admit that because you're 20 years old. Don't tell me how to play my blah, 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 blah. And he's like, but no, you don't understand. If you count to 4, it'll be easy. And mm-hmm. So it was interesting. We traveled up to Racine, Wisconsin, and we recorded with Chris DeJuric. We were into him because he was responsible for the first 2 Gorgasm records and mm-hmm. a few other things that we were really into at the time. And so, yeah, spending 2 weeks in Racine, Wisconsin with 4 other dudes that I had only known for about, 6 months. Everything is big and new at that point in time. You have, you don't, it's like nowadays you just kind of look at everything, whatever, I'm a 40-year-old adult, think I can handle it. Yeah, that was fun. I mean, it's like remembering specific pieces of what happened at that point in time. I don't know.
Maybe you don't want to remember. Maybe you blocked it out for a reason.
Well, I know I walked into a barbed wire fence.
Oh, yeah, you probably blocked it all out.
I was walking around outside the studio, and I walked into a barbed wire fence, and I didn't know what happened, and I walked in with blood all over my face, and everybody was terrified.
Oh, jeez. Sounds like 20-year-old stuff. Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah. Good fun.
So you and Paul basically around since the start, but then, you took like your 4-year hiatus thing from the band, and then upon your return, the band like took off for their first European tour. So what was that experience like for you after being away from the band for the past few years and then coming back and off to Europe you go?
That was like coming home. Honestly, you spent a long chunk of time away from home right after high school, for whatever reason, and then you get to go back, and everything's basically the way it was. Your old bedroom's the same. Your mom's still mad at you about whatever. And, you probably still owe your dad $12. But no, that was interesting because at that point I had moved to New York, and we were discussing on whether or not we could do the long distance thing, and we were able to do it pretty easily. The interesting thing about that point in time is when I went back to the band, Jeremy had come back to the band as well. So you had two guys that were returning for a bit. And, so what you had there was just kind of like getting back in and, let's do the old thing again. Everybody write an album together and get in the recording studio. And so, there was a lot of, everybody was really excited. There was a fresh mentality. We hadn't been around each other as much, so we're all kind of looking at each other a little bit differently. And, kind of like, I remember when you were kind of an asshole. I remember when you were an asshole. So there was a lot of that stuff.
So what was your, European tour then? Because you guys, went on your first European tour then when you guys came back, right?
Yeah. Misery Index and Necrophagist. Epitaph was really big at that point in time. So back in the Stone Age. I had already been to Europe a couple of times, so I thought it was kind of, I was excited about it. The other guys were, pretty, it was still, eye-opening situation. The thing we noticed quickly was that nobody had to drive the van, so everybody could drink more all of a sudden. So upon everybody getting all back together, we discovered new problems. So this is what the problems are, 5 years later. And that ends up going into a story of us losing a member eventually. But it was a lot of fun, we got to see everybody got to see the Eiffel Tower for the first time. The Lesson got familiar for the first time, I don't know if we saw the Coliseum at that point, but, just going over there, and I think that's when our bass player, Mike Flores, had his eyes opened by good beer. For the longest time, he was a Busch Light advocate, and after a while, he started drinking all this killer beer over there, and became a bit of a beer snob afterwards. So, which was good for me. So,
John, Entity recorded as a trio after, this is when you were kind of talking about how you discovered each other again and whatever the hell your problems were, but recorded as a trio after James Lee was, I don't know, kicked out or whatever. What was that experience like now as recording as a trio?
Well, we actually had a vocalist after James for a minute, and he was an interesting guy because he was really easy to get along with. He could handle his alcohol and his drugs and all that stuff, and he wasn't too crazy. But I just don't really think he had it in him to do that, because he got out with us and did a couple of tours in the States and a tour in Europe, and I think it was eye-opening for him, and he started realizing that it was taking a little too much of his life up. So this guy, Micah, from what I remember, he kind of called and left a voice message with Paul saying, I can't do this anymore, sorry, I'm out. And that was basically like the first week that Paul and I were getting together to start putting the material together. So Entity was interesting because it was me and Paul in my apartment for a week.
God.
and up in New York. So Paul flies out to, I had this apartment in New York, and we had, practice pads and mini amps. So we sat in my apartment for a week, and I'd go to work, and he'd sit there and, write stuff on my couch while I was at work. And then we fly out to Kansas City for another week at our bass player's house, Mike, and actually in Topeka. And so we wrote that whole thing, for the most part, in 2 weeks. Went straight into the studio, and we've kind of, like, as far as how we operate these days about recording music, and that's kind of where we really hit our stride. Like the last 3 albums we've done, it's been the same studio, it's been the same engineer, it's kind of been the same method. Mm-hmm. Doing it as a 3-piece was interesting because, well, number one, it sucked because we felt like this dude just kind of dropped us. Okay, great. So we'll get past that. We're adults. Mm-hmm. And so we're in the studio, and while I'm tracking drums, this recording studio we're in is called Chapman Recording. It's gorgeous. It's got all these big, posh, nice studio and couches everywhere with little Macintosh computers everywhere. So they're sitting on the computer writing lyrics while I'm in the room tracking drums. So it was serious crunch time for Paul and Mike. But, man, they knocked it out, and they did an excellent job, and, damn, they blew me away. I was like, you guys sure you can do this? And they're like, well, we'll try, and we'll see what happens. I don't know, man. And,
it
came
worked.
Out. I think it came out great. It's definitely, like, it's, I'm really, really, really partial to that record. It represents a lot, but
yeah.
I think a lot of the people were into it because there wasn't an actual present frontman on there. And, we figured it'd be a selling point that, well, it's just, unfortunately, there's no James Lee here, but hey, check out what the 3 guys can do. People didn't quite, I don't know if people caught or if they didn't catch. That's the best part about being the drummer is you don't really have to pay attention to these details.
There you go.
Leave me alone. I got to carry all this gear and sit behind my drums.
Exactly. So you guys got your new vocalist, all right, Jason from Skinless. Hey, you guys broke up the brothers in Skinless there, but
oh yeah,
you homewreckers, you.
yeah. Well, that's all me. I ruined the Kaiser family. They're all in shambles now.
Yeah, thanks to you.
No. We were actually, it was like the day before going into the studio, and I contacted Jason because he was already in my little baby band, Crater. Mm-hmm. And I had already worked with him a little bit, and so I'm like, hey, we're going to do this album. The thing is he was on a study abroad program, so I think he was in India. He spent the entire year living in India, Africa, Mexico, and Australia. And I'm like, when you get back in 6 or 8 months, we're going to just about be ready to drop an album. Do you want to join the band? And he was like, okay. I had to sell them to Paul and Mike. And so I just, showed Paul and Mike a bunch of Skinless and Mucopus videos and love at first sight. So he comes back into town from his study program, and I think 2 weeks later, we're out on the road with Hate Eternal and Abysmal Dawn and Vital Remains as first tour for that album. And, again, the rest is history.
Again. And like, you said, you recorded Omnipresent like 3 years ago. Yep. Popped right out on tour. So obviously Jason, fit right in. He didn't have a choice, I guess.
Maybe so. I think he's a masochist, honestly. I think he likes being tortured. Because we don't do. I've done albums with plenty of bands, and all these other bands. It's like the material is usually most of it is written 6 months out. Mm-hmm. Most of it. You're usually finishing up a couple of songs as you're going in, but for the most part, you know what you're going to do. You've had a lot of practices. If the band is spread out, dudes have traveled back and forth, maybe there's been some pre-production, like the Gorguts record. Every one of those songs had probably been recorded, if not once, twice, before ever even going in and actually recording the record. Origin just kind of, well, here's all the songs. We got And we get together and we just lock ourselves in the room for 2 weeks and go, and then we're in the studio. Mm-hmm. And so here you got Jason, who's never done an album like this, who's like, I don't know how to do this. And I'm not good at consoling people. I'm just like, don't worry, you're the best. That's why I hired you. You're gonna do great. He's like, this is freaking me out. This sucks. I go, well, then you use that to power your furious music. You're creating very big, scary, monstrous music. So you should be very big, scary, monstrous, angry, and uncomfortable, right? Use this discomfort.
Use this discomfort. You can't get out now. We locked the door.
Yeah, you're done, man. This is you, and this is your life for the next week and a half. Sit in your chair and write your lyrics. Go. And it was pretty funny because it was such a nightmare for the guy, 3 years ago, and he pulled through, of course.
Yeah.
And now here we are again. We're actually today and yesterday we were off, so I'm just kind of hanging out at my mom's house playing with the pets. But now we're in the studio, and he's sitting at the same little chair in front of the same little computer, and he's just enjoying himself.
Good.
So it's And the cool thing about this record, the new one that we got coming out, is this will be the first Origin record to have the same lineup over 2 consecutive records. So
wow.
I'm really excited about that. I don't know if that's a bragging point or, hey, guys, we made it. We grew up.
Well, that is exciting because the lineup was really great on the last album, so we're looking forward to it. So like you said, you're currently working on the new album. Is there anything that you could tell us about the progress so far?
Well, if you're looking for an Echoes of Decimation Part 2, no. Sorry. No. I don't know. There was actually... A guy actually asked me a little while ago, so when are you gonna write the follow up to Echoes of Decimation? And I go, well, we did that when we wrote Antithesis. It's interesting because it's kind of like, it's not like Omnipresent. I don't know if it was viewed this way, but as it came to me, Omnipresent was almost like a big kind of epic space record. You know, it's like a lot of big open chords, a lot of big, just kind of big and epic. Not as fast, not as aggressive, and this one is not like that. I'm going to say this one probably sits somewhere in between Informus and Antithesis.
Oh, cool.
So, and it's Paul Ryan, my guitar player, ever the eminent sage and poet. He says, this material, it's a lot of cake, not much frosting. Which I think is a funny way to put stuff. So it's, I think, he's trying to say it's really dense, it's not as flashy, it's very fast, it's very aggressive. It's the most aggressive thing that we've ever done, easily. Cool. And, yeah, I think my idea going into this record was to try and make it sound like, because if it's one thing that people that are familiar with the band are going to be familiar with, wow, I just said that twice, is that the album comes out and it sounds kind of like blah, right? And then we get on stage and we play and it's like boom. So like the songs are always 15, 20 BPM faster. And so I think what we really wanted to do is make sure that the band sounded live, kind of, because that's what a death metal band does, is they go out and they play live. We don't sell records. We're not very pretty. We don't have any gimmicks, and we don't need them. So what we can do is get on stage and, I got kind of a chip on my shoulder about this, but good luck following my band on stage. And I wanted to try and put some of that into the actual album. So I didn't want it to sound like studio Origin and then live Origin. I wanted to make sure exactly, you know what you're looking for when you go see the band live. So, and we did a few things, like we listened to I paid a lot more attention to a lot of the videos on YouTube, certain things, and, and then this is just me personally, I don't know what the other guys are thinking. They're crazy, by the way. I'm the only sane person in the band. And, I'm just like, I just paid a lot of attention to how things ended up sitting when the song had been played live for about 6 months. So I'm like, I should probably start writing like that. Yeah, so trying to get more cohesive. I'm sorry I went on a ramble about the new record and you didn't even ask.
No, now I don't have to. So that works out well for me, because that's what I was going to ask you, to tell us about the new album. So that sounds, like a lot for us to look forward to. Now, have you finished tracking your drums yet?
Yeah, the drums are finished. They're done, and they're all edited together. We actually started. What is today? Thursday? I don't fucking.
Yeah, it's Thursday the 9th.
Wednesday. Mm-hmm. So yeah, Tuesday. Thank you, because I'm in a time zone. Tuesday, we actually set up all the guitars and got all that, and I think Paul knocked out 2 songs on Tuesday. Mm-hmm. So tomorrow he's going to get back on it. And I'm sure he'll be moving at the speed of light. He's really quick at tracking, and yeah. So then bass, then vocals, and actually next. A week from tomorrow, we play a show in Kansas City, both Unmerciful and Origin.
Oh, wow. That'll be exciting. Now, is it just you guys playing that show?
We've got another amazing band from Kansas City called Troglodytes, and another one called Torn the Fuck Apart. And it's just the Kansas City, Missouri scene. The Origin guys are originally from Topeka, which is further west in Kansas, and I'm from the northeastern Kansas City, Missouri part. And so, the underground heavy metal scene is really doing some neat stuff lately. As a matter of fact, we have Marduk here on Saturday nights, and that's going to be great. So, we're really excited about it. I'm probably playing my last Unmerciful show that night, so I'm going to do Unmerciful and Origin.
Oh, boy.
I
hope you feel better by then.
I don't know, it's like some kind of funky upper respiratory. I got it the day I went in the studio.
Oh, boy.
So I'm tracking drums. I'm a couple of times we had to start the song over because I'm coughing while playing, and it's coming through the mics, and nose is running, and my eyes are dry, and all this great stuff. And
but hey, you got it done. You soldiered through, John.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Ian McDonald knows. He knows all about sick drummers. So
we're literally
flying the flag, Ian.
And well. Yeah, you got all that stuff done. Do you guys have any idea? Now, I know it's impossible to really even talk about a release date, but do you guys have any idea when you're going to be done with the mixing and mastering part of things?
We're done. Everything gets handed in on Cinco de Mayo.
Oh, wow, party day.
Oh, no, not Cinco de Mayo. March the 5th. That's May the 5th. My God. Everything gets handed in the day after my daughter's birthday.
Ah, cool. There you go. Well, at least you'll remember then.
Yeah.
Date. You don't know what today is, but you'll remember that date. So that's cool. And this is your second album with Nuclear Blast?
Third.
Oh, Third. See? And how's that been so far? Is it a lot easier having this label backing with you guys?
Well, it's interesting. It's interesting, and it's different because I think Antithesis was the last record we did with Relapse, and Relapse put a lot behind that record, and and then it kind of. I think this is when Relapse started going through some sort of a a large change. They were moving a lot of employees around. They're getting a lot of new different people in there. So.
Yep.
And there was a point in time there where we just be going into the office and we're one by one not recognizing anybody. And if I'm not mistaken, it's been pretty much an entire turnover more than once since then. So there was some misunderstandings, and we weren't seeing eye to eye. And so that's when we started searching out management, and we got with the Extreme Management Group, and they hooked us up with the Nuclear Blast thing. And actually, now lately, we are with Nuclear Blast in the States, and we're with Agonia in Europe. And Agonia is great, man. They're putting out all kinds of. I think the Omnipresent vinyl. I think they put out 4 different Omnipresent vinyls.
Oh, wow!
Different colors, different, and So we're really excited about what they're going to do again. So
yeah, I was just going to say that makes us look forward to what kind of ways it's going to be released or different formats that it's going to be released on when you get the new album. But Nuclear Blast is usually really good with that kind of stuff too. So John, what kind of a set are you currently playing on?
kind of drum set?
Yes.
Well, I'm playing on the same Pearl reference I've been playing on since right after Antithesis. I was fortunate enough to, get hooked up with Pearl. I don't know if you remember Jade Simonetto, who used to play with Hate Eternal.
Mm-hmm.
He was nice enough to introduce me to his guy, and we got talking. And man, they sold me a really nice drum kit, and I've never had to. I've just been with that ever since. It's awesome. It's a Pearl reference. Little drums, 8, 10, 12, 14. We added a 16-inch floor tom on this particular album so it can make bigger boom sounds for our slow song, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, spoiler alert, 2 slow songs on this album.
Oh, boy.
Oh, no. Right?
Well, that comes with age, so we're...
Yeah. Yeah, I know.
So John, what are you guys going to be doing this year as far as any other shows besides what you're doing there in Kansas City?
Well, I know we're looking at Bay Area Death Fest and Spring Meltdown Fest, I think it is. Mm-hmm. I barely even looked at the dates at this point. I know there are ideas, and I know we're looking at a festival package in early spring. Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm sorry, early fall, because I think we're looking at I think this thing is supposed to drop in the end of the summer. Mm-hmm. So we're looking at a tour package that I can't really name at this point in time, but I hope it happens. And I think we're looking at Mexico and South America.
Oh, nice. And
hopefully we should be in Europe in the winter time, because that's really the best time. It's my favorite time to do Europe.
In the winter. So where can people go to find out more about the band? Would the Facebook page be your best bet, or do you guys have a website or something that people could go to follow you and see, the pre-released tracks and what you guys got going on and all that?
Well, the Facebook page and the Instagram page has been getting all the love lately. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I think we just dropped the ball on getting an actual website at one point in time.
Nobody even cares anymore. As long as you got a Facebook, it seems like all the world is fine.
Yeah, Facebook is your one-stop shop for building your own websites for free.
There you go.
So yeah, it's been Facebook and Instagram lately. So just go there.
All right.
I don't have that off the top of my head.
That's okay. All they got to do is type in Origin Band and you guys come up. I
think it's Origin Band 666 or something like that.
Yep, that's exactly what it is. And then they could just go there and find out show dates, pre-releases, all that kind of stuff. And John, thank you so much for taking the time out to do this interview with me tonight, and all the best with the new album. And we look forward to hearing it and having you back on to tell us all about it once it's released.
Hey, my pleasure, man. Enjoy shoveling that snow.
Okay, thank you so much.
We'll make some snow angels before you shovel it.
I'll make some snow devils out there.
All right.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.